Crime with Jess Rose. Hope you're all okay. In case you didn't know, I do live videos every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. I do have a lot of live videos in that section if you'd like to go and have a look, but I will be uploading them onto this. But thank you for joining me. My Patreon is patreon.com/JessRose5472. And yeah, this is excuse me. This is Maria Colwell and the Heartbreaking Forgotten Children of the UK, which is it's just awful. Awful. Okay, so I'm going to start, all right? So, Maria Ann Colwell, born on the 26th of March 1965, in Hove, near Brighton, which is in Sussex, UK. I believe, my geography's terrible, but I believe that's where we are. Okay, now, Maria's dad is Raymond Colwell. Her mum would have been Pauline Colwell, okay, but she's down as Pauline Keppel, okay. Now, Raymond, he actually died when Maria was only 4 months old. I've seen 4 months old, I've seen a few months old, so it's around that time, okay? Now, Maria was the 5th child, so she did have 4 older siblings. I haven't been able to find out anything about them, and to be quite honest, there's no need to try and find names or anything else on them. So that's all I'll say. She does have 4 older siblings out there, okay? Now, her dad dying, Ray dying, was very stressful for Pauline, it was said, and it actually led to the kids being fostered. They were fostered out, all 5, okay? Now, 2 went to live with Pauline's parents, so that would be their maternal grandparents. 2 went to the state, so they were fostered out, okay? And then one of them, Maria, okay, she actually was taken in by her paternal aunt and uncle, so would be Raymond's sister and husband, okay? And their names is Doris and Bob Cooper, all right? So on the 4th of June 1966, all right? So at this point, Maria was about 15 months old. She was actually sent back to live with her mum, Pauline. Very, very short time though. She only lasted a week. And the reason for this is at this point now, Pauline had actually met a man called William Keppel. Remember I said her name is now Pauline Keppel. They do go on to marry. I'll mention that in a little while. But she meets William Keppel. But now Pauline had wanted Maria back. Okay. And like I say, she goes back. Only lasts 7 days, and it's because the pair, Pauline and William, had become homeless. So they want their baby son back, and they're homeless, okay? So Pauline ended up passing Maria on to, it's an unnamed woman. I've just seen onto a woman. I can't find her name. Obviously, if you know her name, that's, you know, you can let me know. But again, not really, I won't say irrelevant, because obviously Maria was passed on to her, but it wasn't for very long, is what I'll say. Because the NSPCC, now, obviously this is a UK story, and the NSPCC is the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. It was actually founded in 1884. And they were involved in seeking a place of safety, and they were involved in the safety order for Maria, okay? So Maria was actually then, after the week of being with her mum and then being passed on to random woman whoever. Now, I'm saying she's random. She could have been a family member. I don't know. I haven't been able to find out who this woman was. I just know it wasn't for very long, and the NSPCC did get involved. So there was an order placed where Maria was sent back to Doris and Bob Cooper, her paternal aunt and uncle. All right? Now, East Sussex County Council were to make a decision on an interim order for Maria. I don't know why I just did that. I don't know what that was. Now, the problem in all of this, okay, from what I've gathered reading between lines is, well, didn't really need to read too far between the lines, to be honest. It was pretty obvious. Pauline, obviously, didn't like Doris and Bob. She really didn't. That's what I took from this. And the fact that they were looking after her youngest daughter, making sure she's fed and loved and cared for and treated as one of their own, it didn't sit well with Pauline. I don't know why. I didn't hear that she tried to get her 2 children back from her parents. I didn't hear that she tried to get the other 2 back from actual foster care in the care system. Only one I hear about is Maria. And now I know she was the baby. I know she was the youngest. Is that the reason? Or was it because Maria had gone to her ex-husband's? Sorry, wouldn't have even been her ex-husband. He passed away. But Maria's biological dad's sister. Was that the problem? I don't know. That's what I've read into it. But they didn't get on. There was hostility between Doris and Pauline, okay? So what it was, Doris didn't want to go along with a long-term plan for Maria to be returned to Pauline. She didn't want to go along with that. Not because, was it because of a hostility towards Pauline? It could have been a mutual, I don't know, but from what I've read and what I've looked at, it just seems it was for Maria's care, and it was for Maria's sake, okay? That's what I've sort of read between lines and come across, okay? So it said that Doris was an absolutely lovely woman, and was liked by anyone who came in contact with her. There was no one that came forward and said anything negative about her or Bob or the family at all, okay? Now, Maria absolutely thrived with them. She did. Bar that week and the short amount of time with said other woman, she'd spent from 4 months, basically, with Doris and Bob. She loved them, and I would presume she would have saw them as her mum and dad. Why wouldn't she? You know, I don't know if Doris possibly spoke about her brother, which was Maria's dad, Raymond. I would say she would have. And, you know, it just seemed she really thrived. Now, she was a happy little girl. It was said they treated her as their own. She was in all the family pictures. You know, she was literally treated as their own child. She was very close to 2 of Doris and Bob's grandchildren. She joined them on family holidays. Said they go to Newquay and Blackpool and places like that. And she just absolutely loved this couple. She did. She saw them as her parents. Okay. Now we get to July 1967. Maria at this point is about 2.5. Now, Pauline would not allow Maria to get christened. Now, she wouldn't allow Doris to get Maria christened. And from what I think, because it said that Pauline had converted to Catholicism, God, I can't pronounce that, but she'd converted to the Catholic Church, basically, when she met William. So she would have wanted Maria to be christened Catholic, Whereas Doris just wanted to get her christened. I'm presuming it would have been Church of England. But Pauline was like, no, she still had parental rights of Maria. So Doris couldn't really do anything legally with Maria at all. So we get to November 1967, December 1968, and November 1969. And Pauline, these dates are when Pauline had 3 more children to William. Okay? So technically she's now got 8 kids, 5 of them not with her, and she's gone on to have 3 more with this new man. I don't know about that, you know. Now, I can understand when Raymond died, that must have been very overwhelming to have 5 children. One of them is practically a newborn. I get that must have been very overwhelming. But then when you haven't got those children back and you go on to have 3 more, just a little bit questionable to me. Anyway, so she goes on to have 3 more children with, 3 children with William. But Pauline, even though she's got these 3 children for William, she still wants Maria home. This is what I'm talking about. I don't hear about this sort of need for her kids home about the other 4. Now, the information I have said is very scarce on this case. And perhaps maybe there was something out there I haven't been able to find that she was trying to get the other kids back as well. Haven't seen that. Okay? Might have missed something, but I haven't. I have heard the older sister mentioned a couple of times, but not that she was begging for those children back. Just Maria, which is what points me in the direction that she had a real being a bonnet about Maria being with Doris and Bob. Okay, again, all my own opinion, that is. It's just what I felt when I was looking into this story. Okay, so in October of 1968, Pauline and William actually moved to Brighton. Okay, Brighton Council were not made aware of this until June 1971. Okay, now I'm going to throw quite a few dates at you. It's just for your own information. Please don't get a bit sidetracked with the story or anything else. I know when dates are thrown at me, I'm like, what? But it's just so you're aware of the timeline, okay? So, 1969 and 1970, there were complaints made against Pauline and William by neighbours for leaving their 3 kids. So the 3 younger ones she's gone on to have with William. There are complaints being made to the NSPCC and the local council about these children being left on their own. Now remember the dates I gave you for these children. They're very, very young. I know we're going back to 60s and 70s. I know things were a bit more lax then, but come on. Newborns, yep, see you later. See you in a bit. There's your bottle. Off we go. Just crazy. Okay? So this was supposed to be not a real good sign in getting Maria back. You'd think, wouldn't you? You would think that would go against her. You know, she's leaving these kids. The other kids are in foster care, you know, and everything else. You'd think it would halt things, you know, considering Maria was so happy with Doris and Bob. Okay. And in April 1970, Maria actually starts infant school. And at this point, she's age 5. Okay. So, 1970 as well. There's a woman by the name of Diana Lee. She takes over the family as, Pauline's family, should I say, as social worker for the family. All right. Now, Diana herself was newly qualified. All right. But by 1972, she actually averaged a caseload of 60 to 70 cases. Okay. Now, I've actually written down here, similar to Lisa Arthurworry, we've just redone Victoria Climbier's case. And how similar? 30 years later, 37 years later. No, sorry, 30 years later, ignore me. 30 years later, and the same thing still happening, okay? But, so, very, very high caseload that this Diana had. Now, when Diana made the suggestion of Maria going back to Pauline, Maria got visibly upset. She didn't want to go back to this woman. She didn't really know Pauline. And she certainly didn't know William. She knew Doris and Bob. She knew them as her parents. She didn't want to go back to these. She didn't want anything to do with them. But back then, when I've been looking into this, the reunification process, you know, we hear about it all the time now. We need them with the parents. We need them. The kids have got to go back. Well, it was tenfold back in the 70s and 80s. It was just to keep them with their parents was just the most important thing ever. Don't get me wrong. I understand it must be hard, you know, because then you would have cases of children being taken from parents. And we know there are some cases of that as well, where the parents really haven't done anything. And you've got an overzealous social worker who's like, right, okay, I don't know what's going on here, but we're getting the kids out. You know, I do understand that goes on too. But, I don't know, at the safety of the child. Maybe if you can see a child's perfectly happy, maybe just leave them there. Maybe just leave them there. So let's see how it goes. So, October 1970, Maria had actually gone for a visit with her mum and William, okay? And they were now living in a new council flat. Now, 70s, obviously, they were after the war, wasn't it? And 1670s, they built up these council flats that were supposed to be an amazing thing. It was like supposed to be like a village, and it was supposed to be amazing. That went to pot, as we all know, quite quickly within a decade. Council flats were like, you wanted to avoid them, but when they were first put up, they were like amazing. And so she just got her first council flat, okay? Now, Maria was visibly distressed when returned. She'd gone for a visit, okay, with Pauline and William. But she was visibly distressed when she was returned back to Doris. You know, she genuinely wasn't happy when she was returned back. She'd obviously had a very bad time with Pauline and William. And like I say, it was building up a lot of animosity between Pauline and Doris and Bob, okay? Now, Diana was determined to reunite Maria permanently with Pauline, determined. It was like, I've got to get this child back with this mum. So leave her alone. She's happy. Leave her alone. Oh, but there was a lot of home visits during the summer of 1971. But Maria, during these visits, would often say, I want to go home. What she would mean by that was back to Bob and Doris. Obviously, that's her home. She sees that as her home. It's a home she's always known. But, you know, Diana, social worker, would misunderstand what Maria was saying and would be like, home to your mum and dad, and mislead the situation, let's say, when it was quite obvious Maria meant, I want to go back to Doris and Bob. I want to go back to them. I want to go home. Okay. Now, the school themselves voiced concerns over these visits when Maria would visit her mum and William. Okay. Maria, she even ran away. She ran away from school the once to avoid another visit to Pauline and William. Okay. And when they found her, she was actually hiding back at Doris's. She was hiding back home. she just didn't want to go. She didn't. She hated it. And we'll find out why very soon. But she did not want to go back there at all. Okay, now we get to the 6th of October 1971. She's age 6. And preparations are being made for Maria to return to Pauline permanently. Okay? Now, because of the animosity between Pauline and Doris, they couldn't set up what was known as like a gradual return back to the mum. A gradual reunification. Because it was just too heated between them. So instead, what they were doing was the summer of visits, and then it was just going to be, right, you're going home. Which I think's so cruel. It's so cruel to this little girl. Okay, a new infant school had been arranged for November 1971. Diana actually did this without taking on board any reviews from any other professionals, i.e. doctors, teachers, Maria's actual paediatrician who'd worked with her while she's living with Doris, didn't take into account any of them. You know, she just made the decision. All right. So we get to the 22nd of October 1971. All right. And Maria was then moved into her mother's home with William on the Whitehall Council estate in Brighton and her 3 younger siblings. Just like that. Just lifted out of what she believes are her parents, and she's put into the house of just strangers who she's spent very, very infrequent amounts of time with, and just landed there. Just so cruel. And this was when, like I say, like I've mentioned, the birth mother's rights come before everything and everyone else. The birth mother's rights are just first and foremost. It's just where we were at that time frame. Now, Maria, when she was taken to Pauline and Williams, I'm sorry, I can't call her mum. I just can't. I can't. But when she was taken, it said she was taken kicking and screaming. She did not want to go. Why couldn't they see that? We've got April 1972. There's a neighbour who makes a complaint to the NSPCC over William's mistreatment of Maria. So she's only been returned in the October. Within a few months, he's already mistreating her. There's bruises seen on this child, and a complaint was made. But when the NSPCC, what's the word? Oh my God, I can't think of the word now. Representative went round to Pauline and Williams and spoke to Maria. She'd already been forced to lie. She'd already been told what to say. So she had her lawyer ready for them. So, could you not see? Could you not see how desperate she was getting? 16th of February 1972. William actually has a fight with his neighbour. And it comes out at that point that it was that particular neighbour that had reported him. Okay. Now the police are called and a report's made to social services the next day about Maria and their worries and everything else. Nothing's done. Nothing's done. So this is the police, social services, NSPCC. There's a lot of different authorities involved with this child. Okay. 21st of April 1972. It said that Maria was actually registered with the doctors on that day. All right. But there's no record of her ever being taken. So they registered her, probably under the say-so of Diana, the social worker. But she was never taken. Okay. Teachers are also very concerned of the injuries that Maria's coming into school with. Remember, this is a new school. This is a new school that had been set up for her when they moved her to Brighton to move in with Pauline and William, and they're noticing bruises. They're getting concerned over the injuries on Maria at this point. Nothing's done. Okay. 13th of May 1972, Pauline and William get married. Oh, what a glorious day, eh? Okay. 1st of June 1972, Diana visits the family but doesn't see Maria on that day. Doesn't see her. She's just not there, apparently. 8th August 1972, there's another report from a neighbour. Doesn't even say if it's the same one that had reported earlier on in the year. Doesn't even say it was that neighbour, but there's another report from a neighbour who's seen bruises on Maria. Don't forget, before Maria even moved in, these cretins had been getting reported for leaving their kids alone. The babies, you know. So these neighbours must have been losing their mind, okay? Now, the 1st of December 1972, Diana was actually supposed to do a 6-month report for Brighton Council to say and to see how Maria was getting on. That didn't happen. No reason, just didn't happen, okay? Now, given the fact that they'd moved to Brighton, like we say, and the council hadn't caught up in time, there was no records that Maria was under any supervision. All right. So even though the school were noticing these bruises, they didn't realise that she was under a supervision order at that point. The NSPCC and social services were not talking to each other. Okay. The housing department, they were also involved because neighbours were reporting Pauline and William to the housing department because of the noise when they were fighting. So, and also the neighbours having to listen to this little girl being beaten. Now, we know a council flat. We know when it was. I'm presuming the walls were like paper. They could hear everything. And these poor neighbours, the police have been involved. NSPCC, social services. Now, the housing department. Poor neighbours must have been pulling their hair out trying to get help for these children. And by now, Maria wasn't even being fed. She's not even being fed at this point. Okay. But they like to do that, don't they? They love to start starving their kids, don't they? And she was being locked in her room with the handle removed. So that's where she was spending the majority of her time. And because the last time she was actually seen in school was the 20th of November 1972. Okay. So she'd only been in the school a year and then she was just stopped going. And when the school and the teachers were inquiring with Pauline, like, where is she? She's poorly. She's not very well. Oh, come on. The alarm bells must have just been ringing. It just so frustrating. So now we come up to the 6th of January 1973. Okay. Little Maria, she's 7 years old. And it's 11:30 p.m. Alright. Now I've told you she's already been starved. She's been locked in a room for hours upon hours upon hours every day because she's not even been allowed to go to school. She's been beaten. You know, this girl has gone from being loved and being the centre of Doris and Bob's family to now just being treated horrifically, okay? So like I say, 6th of January 1973, 11:30 p.m. And William comes home drunk. Just comes in, just loud and leery from a night out drinking, okay? Now, Pauline, you know, mum of the year, fearing he'd come home drunk, okay, and not wanting to deal with his wrath herself, she kept Maria up. This little girl's 7 years old. It's 11:30 at night. And you've kept her... what, to act as a shield in case he comes at you? Explain that to me. So Maria had been kept up, but when he walked in, she refused to acknowledge him. Who can blame her? Who can blame her? Now, I wouldn't have thought, given the treatment she was getting, that it would have been a disrespectful kind of, not my dad, that kind of way. I would have more thought it's fair and, oh God, he's home. That's how I'd have more took her reaction, okay? But she didn't acknowledge him, and it sent him into an absolute frenzy. He lost his mind. And he just began to kick this little girl, this little 7-year-old girl, whose mother couldn't just leave her where she was happy, could she? She couldn't just leave well enough alone. And he just kicked her over and over again. And you know, everywhere I've looked, I haven't seen where Mum jumped in, where Mum got beaten trying to protect her. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen Mum got put in hospital trying to protect her child. I haven't seen that. So I can only guess that didn't happen. So after he'd finished kicking this little 7-year-old, starved, malnourished little girl around the living room, after he'd finished that, he was tired. So he took himself off to bed, leaving her on the floor with visible external injuries, and God knows what was happening internally. Just took himself to bed. But when he got up in the morning, obviously, Maria's not doing well at all. Now, this is the 7th of January 1973, so it's the next day. And I was very baffled by this, and all I can think of, either he was cocky, I'm presuming it was because the law wasn't great on child abuse, but he took her to the Royal Sussex County Hospital in a pram. He did, the next day. Like, that's unusual to me in these cases. And like I say, I can presume, and you know, and we know that the law just wasn't something he felt he needed to fear after beating this little child around his living room floor the night before. He just probably didn't feel he needed to be concerned. And little Maria Colwell, she died shortly after reaching the hospital. The autopsy, she'd obviously had severe external injuries, but she had very severe internal injuries. She had brain damage. From being kicked in the head. She had a completely empty stomach. There was nothing in her stomach. She had 2 black eyes, broken ribs. This poor little girl. From being ripped out of a family's home that loved her, that cared for her, that doted on her, to be put into, why? It's why I don't understand. Why did Pauline want her back? I just don't get it. Now, William, William, yeah, he was found guilty of manslaughter. He was. You might think, wow, maybe he should have feared the law. Well, not really. His sentence was 8 years for murdering a 7-year-old little girl. He got 1 more year than how old she was. And you might be like, that's a disgrace. And you'd be right. But he didn't do 8 years. He was out in 4. 4 years. 4 years for murdering a little girl. For nothing. What, because she, I don't know, because she didn't greet you the right way when you walked in from the pub? Look, what about her mum? You know, I mentioned at the beginning of this story that it's so frustrating because I just wish there was more. I just wish there was more information on this story. I want to know what happened with Pauline. What happened with her? You know, I just wish there was more on this case. I genuinely do. But it just got me looking. It just got me looking at the time while I was looking into Maria Colwell. And there's a couple of other cases. There's Heidi Casida and there's Jasmine Beckford. Two cases where there's nothing. There's nothing about these children. Now, Heidi was... Heidi, I don't even know how old this child was when she was starved to death in a locked bedroom by her stepdad. He got life. Don't even know how old she was though. Now, it wasn't, I didn't go to some other sources, okay? But just as I was looking, I'm like, how old is this girl? Jasmine Beckford, who was 4 years old, starved and beaten to death in her home by her stepdad. Another case, okay? Then we come to, and at this point it was like, changes will be made. We'll be, you know, we'll join all the forces. We'll make sure everyone's talking to each other. The police. Now, remember when I was on about Victoria Climbier and there was a case review that was supposed to happen. That was the law that was brought in. And there's supposed to be a case review where all the authorities get together and they sit down and they go through, you know, all their interactions with a particular child. Okay? This doesn't happen. Then we get to Victoria Climbier, 8 years old. Peter Connolly, 17 months old. Daniel Palker, 4 years old. Ellie Mae Butler, 7. Star Hobson, 16 months old. Arthur Labinho Hughes, 6 years old. KJ Priest, 3 years old. Sebastian Kalinowski, 15 years old. All these kids known to authorities, all these names that I've just read to you, I have done their stories. And every time we're told changes will be made. Every time. Just got myself into a right state there. But just reading these kids' names out, and every single time you hear the same thing over and over and over again. You know, things will be done, we'll do better next time, better luck next time. It's just words at this point. It seems like these reviews and these inquiries that are done and, you know, that they spend a fortune on doing, they just don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. After Maria Colwell, when they brought the need for the serious case reviews to be done and stuff, that was supposed to be, you know, it's supposed to be bring about a big change. Look at all the names that I've read to you afterwards. Where was the big change for those kids? And you might be like, well, you know, they didn't. The names that I've just said to you, you know, it's not. I've done a lot more child cases, but these are just the ones that were known to authorities, and there's probably loads more. I've just gone through the ones where I've done the stories of them. They were all known to authorities. They weren't hidden away where no one knew about them. No one knew the child lived there, you know, weren't known to authorities. You know, family moves around a lot, etc., where they can't be kept up with. And so that wasn't the case with these. They were all known. It's just so frustrating. So frustrating. It really, really is. It's so sad, and it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy, and I hate doing these stories anyway, but I hate doing them when I know that there was people there to help these children. They were there. these kids were seeing these authorities. They were seeing these people. I mean, I know it's not a British case, but, you know, Gabriel Fernandez, you know, we know him. How many people saw him? You know, there are just so many cases. But, yeah, that was Maria Colwell and the heartbreaking forgotten children of the UK. Oh, awful case. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Like I say, I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. If you would like to join my Patreon, it's patreon.com/Jess Rose 5472. Thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, if you want to join me on the live on a Tuesday or a Thursday, I do requests on a Tuesday. I'd really appreciate that too. Or if you'd just like to comment and subscribe, that'd be great too. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you.